Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the DigiHive podcast. This is Inside the Care Home, and this afternoon we're joined by Samantha Crawley from EEQ Care and by Anish from Oaklands. And we're going to have a conversation about recruitment and retention and what we don't know, or what we might not realise that we know. And I'm really interested to hear your insights, Samantha and Anish, because I think every care home is different, but there's so much that is in common. And this is a conversation that we hope will be useful for you if you've been taken aback by anything that's happened in your staff team recently, perhaps a bit of grumbling, perhaps somebody's resigned and you weren't expecting it, or perhaps you're looking at the numbers, the data on your retention and recruitment, and those don't seem to be moving the way that you should. So let's get into it. I'm going to ask you, Samantha, because I'm really interested in your history. You didn't take on an existing care home, you started one from scratch, if I've got that right. What led you to do that, and how did you start creating the culture that you wanted in that service?
Yeah, no, we didn't. Yeah, we built all of our care homes in this phase of my career. We've been building care homes, so actually all the developments are new. How we build culture, though, I think it has to be really intentional, and I think you have to look at it weaving through every brick as well as every person. So, when you think of design of a space and how people will use it, that actually can be supportive of the culture or not.
Okay.
So if we look at small things like we've got nurse call, like every care home, but our nurse call does not create any noise. So there's no noise, there's no background noise, there's no environmental triggers for people. And that's different to typical when you walk into a care home, you're hearing bells go off in your ear all the time. The culture is that the space is the person's. So then why are we having alarms going off every 2 seconds in someone's home? Because that's to tell us what we need to do, not for the person. So even in that, it was really important that we were very intentional in every part of how we created the space. And from that point, team members then know that actually we're here to enable people to do whatever they want in a day and not create an institute which is typical of a hospital. And that's really, so from the first brick all the way through then to the people. So I think it has to be intentional, and remember that every decision is a cultural decision. So whether that's the tech you use, how you recruit, how you write a policy, everything is cultural decision. And if we do that, then it gets weaved like a golden thread through everything.
That is so interesting, because I've heard lots of people say, oh, we're going to adopt some technology to turn that noise off because it's really annoying. But I've never heard somebody talk about it and the impact that it has on the culture in the team and in the building before. You clearly had that in your mind before you'd begun.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's amazing. Anish, had it ever occurred to you to look at it like that? Do you have a call bell ringing in your services? I think you don't.
No, we don't. We've got them coming through to our devices as well, but they still make a noise, if you like, because the devices are ringing themselves. So yes, you can adjust that volume, and it's a bit easier than definitely having the emergency blaring outside someone's room through the night. But yeah, and you're right, it does change the thought process of staff members, especially where you're in their house. It's not the other way around, right? So it's meant to be you're working in their space, not that they're there in your workspace. So thinking of things in that way definitely does help. Interested though, whether do you find that since you've been building homes, is there a difference between staff morale and retention through the purpose-built homes? And I'm only guessing, did you used to work in
yeah, absolutely.
not purpose-built? Is there a difference?
Is the building the difference, is what you mean?
No, staff, the way they are, because they're in a new build, do they react slightly different?
Yes. I don't know. I mean, look, I opened up a brand new care home 25 years ago. And, you know, when Sunrise was in the UK, back then, all the way up, showing how old I am now, mother God. But, you know, and really the rule then was don't fall back on the fancy staircase or the curtains, because actually it means nothing. It literally means nothing. And I remember at the time people saying, this is ridiculous, it's too opulent, it's too fancy, it's too all of the twos, you know. But I remember saying to people in the sector, look, I know we can't rely on curtains, but look, we have to up the standard across the sector. And actually that's what it did do. So that is what it did do. People had to pull up their own socks because they had people in the sector now that was going to say, this is possible. And I think that that's the same for us. I don't know that people stay because it's a new building at all. I think people stay because they're valued.
Yes.
And I've been in lots of different organizations over the years, and I think you can have the fanciest team room but not care about somebody's child's birthday, or it's the grandchild's first day at school, and a fancy team room is not going to fix that, you know. So I think people, there's a saying, I have it on my LinkedIn, I think it says people don't care what you know until they know that you care. And for me, that's key. And interestingly, it's funny, we're talking about the OGs today, because one of the first team members we took on in our first home is getting married soon, and we've just had an invite to our wedding, and we were going, oh, all the OGs will be back together again, you know. So because that matters. So I think we can, I don't believe new buildings keep people. I do believe if you've got the culture right, people will stay. And that's probably where I'd say, yeah.
It might attract them in the first place, but that's not what keeps them there.
I'm hoping not. To be honest, I'll be just straight. I would hope not. I don't care whether, I don't want to know if they're attracted to the building. If they are, they're probably not right for us. And they probably wouldn't get through our recruitment process. So I want them, their heart to be right, not their eyes.
Absolutely.
So yeah, interesting.
You must have done a lot of recruitment, and it sounds as if that the culture that you wanted to create has been part of that process ever since day one, your first care home, and now you're recruiting for care home number 6. Have you changed that recruitment process at all, or does it look much the same as it did?
You know, that's a really interesting question. No, it hasn't. The principles have not changed. However, it did go off piece for a minute. So let me explain. So we've got a very different process. I don't know if you know, Anish, people apply to work with us on our website, and they're asked really random questions like, do you talk to strangers at a bus stop? Have you ever danced in the rain? Really random. Okay, just really random questions. Okay. There's 6 of them. And how they reply to that depends on whether or not they get invited to what we have assessment centres every week. And they get an email from me that says, don't get dressed up. This isn't going to be fancy. You're going to spend a couple of hours with us. We're going to do a few games. You're going to get to know about us and who we are. We're going to get to know about you. And you may be invited for an interview after that assessment centre. Okay. Just relax. Right. So it's very different. It's very different. So that hasn't changed. We still do that. And I'm still really nosy. And people said to me, like, how do you keep this going? But like in my previous organisation, we had 3,500 people, and I was able to do I touch base with every induction. So I have teams in to each induction and meet each individual. Okay. We're all in one room. It's not really hard. It takes 10 minutes. But I teamed in 4 weeks ago to one, and the people that were in the room were not. I thought something's gone wrong in this assessment centre. Something has gone wrong. These are not the type of people that are going to be able to stay with us. And by the way, the people I chose that were not going to stay with us, they're all gone. So it was that obvious. Long story short, we reviewed the whole thing. We reviewed how the assessment centres were being done, who was doing them. Did we have that kind of principle running through everything? And it turned out that a couple of people who were newer to us were being nice instead of kind. So they saw niceness and mistook it for kindness, which is very different. So we broke that all down, and now we've reset ourselves again, and we're back up and we're running. So yeah, so it's interesting. It hasn't changed in the way we approach it, but that review as to whether it's pure needs to happen more often, I think. And I think that showed us you can go off on a tangent and all of a sudden be on a different pathway altogether. We managed to pull it, but holding on to that and making sure that the strand runs through everything was really important. So no, we still recruit that way. And people say like, oh my God, it must be really hard. It's not. Home managers love it because they're not making time for 20 interviews, for 18 not to show up, one to turn up, and you hope to God you can get it done in 10 minutes. And the last one may or may not be somebody who you can employ. So from a time management perspective, it gives back time. It doesn't take time.
And those people are being immersed in your culture from the moment they walk into that session, by the sounds of it.
Absolutely. So we do a whole kind of presentation about who we are, what our values are. We talk about our openness to LGBTQI community, and that you will be working with and having people living in the care homes. And that helps people self-select. So some people select out at that point and just say, not for me, it's not a problem, it's okay. We talk about complex dementias. We talk about our language. We don't even use the words challenging behavior in our organization. So we talk about that so that people understand that this is what you're getting involved with. So there's no real shock then, as we move on and we go take them on, go into induction. From the day one, they have been immersed. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that contributes to being able to keep those people?
It does.
Because it's quite a common scenario in not your service, speaking very generally, that you interview people, you make an offer, someone accepts, and then somewhere during the first month, maybe they never turn up for the induction, maybe they do the training, you never see them again. The fall off rate at that stage is quite high, isn't it?
It's very high, and up to 9 months actually. If we can get people to stay in social care up after 9 months, they'll probably stay 9 years. But we lose a lot in social care up to 9 months. So we've got a whole system in place where we've got a buddy system, and everyone gets incentivized if the person they're buddying stays and they enjoy their work and all of that kind of stuff. But I do think it helps us retain people. So our turnover at the moment, I think, is about 7.1%.
Wow, okay.
Out of that, we've taken out about 50% of those people. So they've been our error. So, and we're really, really ruthless about taking people out who are not okay. And I know, very early on. And like, I know everyone's a bit worried with the new HR laws and everything else, but if we leave the wrong person in, the damage it will cause is way more than making a brave decision early on.
But that problem doesn't go away, does it? It doesn't get better.
Absolutely. So how do you take that risk, as it were, HR wise, if you are, or you're not worried about it, you know what the laws are, so you know what you
know what the laws are. We have got a HR company we speak to. I think when I ring them, they must think, oh my God, it's her again. No. But look, I mean, the thing is, if we've made it, generally it's because we've made the mistake. It's not the person's fault. If they're not a cultural fit, that's not their fault. They are who they are. We have made the error, so therefore we need to cut down our errors. It's got nothing to do with that person, has it? They were always who they were. We've just made an error on our side, and we do need to act quickly. Interesting. I was saying this to someone last week. We've got we put ads out on Facebook, for team members to join, and under one of them it says, do apply, but be careful, because if you don't fit, they get rid of you really quickly. And my recruitment person said, do you want me to take that off? I said, no, leave it on. It's true. Yeah. It's true. So I think you need to be brave. I think you do need to be brave, but I think the cost of time that is taken on managing the impact of the wrong person is much less than making that decision at the outset.
How do you think it shows up? This is a question for you both, really, but how do you know that you've got a poor fit, that someone isn't going to take to your culture? Where would you look for those things? Would you like to go first?
And you want to go? Or,
no, yeah, you go first. I'll chip in if I.
So for me, when I meet people, if they label people, that's a big sign for me. So, like, if you're willing to label another human in any label, I worry about your understanding of human rights and humanity. So that is those challenging behavior people, the doubles, the feeders, the old dears, the old guys. Any label makes me think, okay, hold on a second. You've got a label you're fitting onto that individual. What gives you the right? Because I don't think any of us have that right. So I really don't. I don't believe we do. So I always worry if I hear people talking labels. I also worry if I see people who can't listen. That worries me. So when I see people interacting with each other, and I'm from an Irish family, we all talk over each other, by the way. Mother of God, you can't get a word in my family. There's loads of us. But you have to be able to listen. And if you're speaking straight after the person has finished their sentence, you haven't heard what they said. So I'm looking for that pause. I'm looking for that moment where you've been able to take that in and actually show that you've actually actively listened. I'm looking for that.
And that works both ways, right? It could be that they're overconfident and think they know, or they're pretending they're listening. Oh, yeah. No, I totally get it.
And exactly.
But I 100% agree with you that it's that active listening, isn't it? To know that they're actually taking in what you're saying and thinking about it, processing it, and then coming back to you if they've got any questions. And if no one's got any questions as well, that's always a worry.
Worries me. Always worries me that. If not, and people, I mean, it terrifies me when people think they know everything. It really scares me. I wake up one day thinking I know everything. It's never happened yet, but I would love to have that. I'd love to be able to go, I got it. I know what I'm, because the truth is none of us know everything. But so people who are overconfident would really concern me as well. And the other thing I would say is people who aren't able to talk about the mistakes they've made, because we have all made mistakes and we will continue to make mistakes. So if people won't talk about that, then what does that mean about them? Are they willing to be vulnerable? Because that's really what we're looking for in integrity. We're looking for vulnerability and strength in that vulnerability. So if I'm not seeing that come across from somebody, that really concerns me.
I think especially with a senior carer or that role doing medication, something I always ask is, what did you learn from your last meds error? And you do get the people that say, I've never made one.
Oh, right. That's such a lie.
Every single person
makes a mistake.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a straight no from me at that point. If you're lying about that,
terrifying.
It's not the right fit, is it? It's not what you want from somebody, especially in that senior position that's meant to take charge of that shift. You've got to be trusting what they're saying. And if you aren't accepting that you've made a mistake, you're never going to grow. You're never going to learn from that.
No, you cannot learn. You cannot learn if you don't.
And it's shared learning as well, right? So even if you've made that mistake, if you share that with everybody else, maybe someone else won't make that mistake later.
Agreed. In our organisation, I don't know if you do this, Anish, we on a monthly basis, we host a lessons learned lab. So I've talked to other people about it. I saw it on LinkedIn, actually, another organisation, they met me and said, how do you do this? And okay, let's do it. So they're doing it now. So we hold a lessons learned lab, and that lab is every single person across the organisation is invited onto Teams. Doesn't matter what role you do at all, everyone is invited. And what we do on that lessons learned lab is we talk about safeguardings. We had a few coroners there for a while, so we talk about coroners and the outcomes and any lessons we'd had from those. We talk about complaints, which are really helpful because in care there's a lot of repeat. It's not a repeat. You get the laundry, you get this, you know what I mean? You get those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. We talk about safeguardings that we put through as well. And we talk really openly about them. And we talk about what we could have done better, what we did really well. Like for the coroners, for example, I had one of the nurses who had to give evidence at coroners. I had her at the last lessons learned lab, and she was able to talk about it from her perspective, how she felt. And she said, she felt really supported. She, everything was great. It's still scary. You're in a coroner's, you got to give evidence. It's not easy. but she was able to talk about it from her own shoes, which I think is really good. And a lot of people got a lot from that, because then you're learning it then. And also what she would do differently. And actually in Coroner, she was amazing. She talked about her reflective practice. She didn't do anything wrong, by the way. She didn't do anything awful at all. It was fine. It was a very good outcome. But there was reflective practice that needed to happen. And she talked about that openly in the coroner's court, and then also talked about it openly in the lessons learned lab, and said to other nurses, look, just consider my learning in this, because actually if I'd, that's really powerful stuff, I think. But I think what that's done has created teams that when CQC come in to do inspections, they know there's no secrets, because they know they have them all, because we talk about it every month. So there's nothing that, and we say we've reported this to CQC, we've reported this to safeguarding, we've reported, you know, because then it doesn't matter what they're asked. There's no skeletons, because they know everything. So, and I think that like the first CQC inspection we had in our first home, and this CQC inspector said, it's really weird. They keep coming up to me, asking me to speak to me. It was a team. She said, normally they run away, like, you know,
Run.
But they're quite confident that there's nothing that they could possibly say that we haven't actually discussed. And I think that freedom, that there's a psychological safety in that, which is absolutely key to good culture. And for me, that I suppose would be the backbone of it. So I would say that's our biggest lesson, is to keep learning and keep sharing it.
That's really interesting. So we're doing a big thing at the moment of run towards the inspector, but we're focusing it more on having an outstanding story or something that person's done that they want to showcase themselves to. But I think actually what you just said is really important as well, and almost the other way, that this went wrong, but this is what we learned from it.
Exactly.
And saying that to them.
I agree. I think we need to. I mean, I've got a thing that every care home sends me outstanding outcomes, outcomes, very clear outcomes every month. But I think it's in the messy and in the murky and in the difficult that care homes really shine. Absolutely. So I think we do brilliant stuff, and I love doing outstanding outcomes as well, because team members don't really actually understand the impact that they have on an individual. They just don't. They just say, oh, I'm just doing my job. No, you're literally helping somebody live their best day. Absolutely. That is not just doing your job, you know. So there's that bit, but I do think it's in the messy that we really get good stuff from care homes. It's you know, I was doing a webinar there with the Outstanding Society a couple of weeks ago, and I explained we had a CQC inspection a few months back where we had 6 inspectors rock up at a care home, 4:45 in the morning, always lovely. And you know, it's like, oh God, yeah. So no, it was fine. And look, as I said, throughout that 3-day inspection, things went wrong. Like there was things that had gone wrong. The fire alarm went off 3 times. There was a thing that needed to be there that wasn't. But we were able to respond and show them what we were doing all the way through. And actually that resulted in an outstanding. So they came in on a risk-based 4:45 in the morning inspection and left with overall outstanding. And that was the same with the other home. Same again, risk-based, outstanding. So I think you can, there's a lot to be said for the messy and for the difficult in care homes, and actually what comes out of that. Because I think you get really good teams when you go through some really tough stuff. But you have to do it together.
Absolutely.
That really shines through everything that you're saying to me, Samantha, that your whole team feels safe enough. You mentioned that word, but safe enough to air all of that dirty laundry in front of each other and to be honest about what they learned or what they could have done better or what they would like to have been different. And you've made that sound quite straightforward, but actually it must have been challenging to drive a culture where that actually is okay. Have you got any tips for people listening to you thinking, yes, I'd like to get there, but I don't know how. I don't know either what I need to do or perhaps what I need to stop doing. Are there things that you think managers do that unwittingly undermine that kind of environment?
Yeah, I think I would look at data first.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about heart and I'm going to data. But data tells us whether people are safe to talk about mistakes, to talk about incidents, to talk about failure. data will tell us the number of falls, the number of meds errors, the number of incidents, the number of accidents, the number of near misses. And if we're not seeing high levels of those happening, or we're seeing none of those happening coming out of space, people are not safe. The least amount of reportable incidents, the less safe people are. So it terrifies me. I remember going to a group a few years back, and I was sitting in like a room, and somebody said, "We've had no meds errors here for the last 2 months." And I'm going, oh, yes, you have. And oh, yes, you have. This is not possible in this number of things. But anyway, it was, I think, look at data. If the data is telling us that everything's perfect, then we've got a real culture problem, because nothing is always perfect. Nothing. So I'd say look at data and start trying to interrogate what's really going on. And then I would say the leader needs to be willing to be as vulnerable as everyone else. So like, I'm not looking for people who want to go and work in Amazon. This drives me up insane when people say, well, Amazon are paying this and Tesco's paying. Great, those people need to work in Amazon and Tesco. We really do not want them looking after somebody's mommy. That's not what their vocation is. So that's neither here nor there, isn't it? It's like, it's not a good test. But I do think we need to consider how vulnerable a leader will be with a person they lead. Because if you're not willing to be there and rumble in that vulnerability, how are you going to get your team members to do it? How do they know it's safe if you're not actually showing them that it's safe to do that you don't judge, that you can make a mistake as a leader, you don't know all the answers. So I think we have to really show what vulnerable leadership looks like, sounds like, and feels like, so that team members can do that too. And in a space where it's not, they won't. They'll shut up.
And I presume that also involves your next layer down, if you like. So Anisha was struck when you were talking about recruiting seniors and talking to them at the interview stage about the mistakes they had made, and seeing what they could articulate about what they've learned. That's quite an important cohort of people, isn't it, who are in the service every day? Absolutely.
I think sorry, something else I was going to say was having that open culture, like you mentioned. But so we have like a digital reception that our staff sign in and out on as well, and they can say it's a well-being question.
Yeah.
When they first sign in and when they leave, and it's quite different across. I've talked to other people who do the same thing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's great evidence for showing that all my staff are happy, because none of them ever sign out unhappy." And again, it's just literally what you just said as well, isn't it, Samantha? That you've got to get that feedback to know what to change and what to do. They're just saying it for the sake of saying it. If you are signing out unhappy, and then you get a phone call from the manager or whoever saying, "Look, you signed out unhappy, what's going on? Can we help with anything?" It might just be that cry out for help, but also just having that open culture that promotes that, I think, just speaks volumes for the home. If you're getting that feedback, it's a good thing. It's not a negative. Even if they sign out unhappy every day, I still don't think it's a negative.
No, I think when you stop getting the feedback, that's when you need to worry. I think when people stop talking and people stop sharing and people go quiet, that's the most dangerous place to have people. I think leaders often, we often hear the ones that are doing really well because they're nice and loud. They're really loud. They'll kind of always come out. But we do this piece of work each year where we go into a room and we have every single person in every single home put into a grid.
Okay. And
so the grid is up here on the right hand side top corner. They wanted to be developed. They wanted the next job. They want a promotion. They want to learn more. They want to do more. They go up there. They're the easy ones, I think. They're the easy ones. Then we've got the people down on the bottom left that they need to be managed. We don't have many of them, as you can imagine, because we deal with things very quick. But Pareto's law, 80% of your time spent on 20% of the people. Who are those people? We need to deal with these. We need to act and deal with these. And they're the ones, the squeaky wheels, aren't they? Those two. They're the ones. But the big thing is this core team, and it's the core team that actually ensure your home is well managed and well led every day. And I think that's where people get surprised, where they go, "Oh God, really? She's left? She's been great. But what happened to her?" You know, they're the ones that we have a plan to retain and motivate those people. So the biggest piece of work goes into the core, not the two on the edge. So
and I think deliberate about that, about identifying those people and making sure that they get a share of the attention,
because they are key. And I think a lot of the time they're not squeaky wheels. They come in, they're consistent, they get nice feedback, they just carry on, they do what they need to do, they are who they are, and they can get forgotten about a lot because you're too busy with these other two. So for me, it's that core team that we need to work on, and we need to have a plan. Yeah,
because you're right, it's so easy for the people that want to promote or they want to be a champion in an area, and they do their bit and they present what they found really well. You're obviously going to give them praise, right? They're doing a great job. You've got the others who are in disciplinaries every month or whatever it might be.
So they
get a hell of a lot of attention from you as well. And it's those middle ones that can so easily slip through the gap. And having that meeting where you identify that is really, really powerful. That's a great idea.
I think we had years ago. I had a lady called Mama Julie, and she ran the laundry in this home. Okay, and she could run the laundry in 100 homes. This woman, she was so good. I'm not lying. I wanted her to come and run my laundry at home. She just had it down. And I remember saying to her, like, "Do you ever just want to like go and teach other people, or bring them to me?" She said, "But I'm going nowhere." I like my laundry. She didn't want to be promoted. She didn't want anything. She just loved to do her job. But let me tell you, take her out of that laundry, the whole thing would go wrong. Laundry in a care home is key to really good outcomes. We know this. So, but take her out of that, but she's easily forgotten because she's there. She just gets on with it. She never calls in sick. She always turns up on time. She does her job. They're the ones that get lost, and they're the ones that we really need to capture, I think, more than anything.
Definitely.
Interesting. Yeah. So there's an insight for everyone, I think, to go away and make a conscious effort to think about who in your staff team might be being forgotten or left behind or not included in the work that you're doing, whatever it is you're doing to develop your culture and make it how you want it to be. Samantha, I have one other question for you, which is to go back to something you said earlier about the difference between niceness and kindness.
Okay.
I'm really intrigued by that. So would you mind just talking around that a little bit?
I don't mind at all. So look, I mean, I'm Irish, so we tend to be fairly direct, don't we? You know, a little bit, you know, slightly direct. But look, I think there's misperception out there that as a leader, you need to be nice to people. By the way, you don't need to be horrible to people. And I am the one who 30 years ago got a first 360-degree feedback that said Samantha needs to tell her face she's happy. Okay, that was my 360-degree feedback from a lot of people. So it was something I needed to do actively. My face is very stern if I'm just walking down the hallway. So that was feedback. Anyway, so this doesn't mean that, you know, any one of us have got it down pat. But I think a lot of decisions that we make are done because we want to be nice. You don't want to hurt somebody. You don't want them to feel bad. You know, you don't want that. But actually, you've got to go back to the base question. Does my bum look big in this? Okay. So being nice would be, oh, it's lovely. It's great. Absolutely. If you're in Ireland, they would be kind and say, take that dress off. It's disgraceful. Yeah. Go and put something else on that you look lovely in. And that's being kind, because you're being kind to the person and saying, actually, that's not any good here. What you need to do is this. And that's kindness. So kindness requires more of the person. It requires a bit more of buy-in to the other person and their outcome. Niceness is very easy, but the outcome can be really bad. Whereas kindness will always require something of the person. And that's the difference. I think we need to get that right in care as well, because being nice and being kind are very, very different. Yeah.
That sounds just like what you described within your recruitment and induction process. actually the kinder thing to do is to be very upfront. This isn't a good fit for you or for us, rather than kind of prolong the agony for everyone. That was so useful. Thank you. That will give us all something to think about. Thank you so much. Is there anything, Samantha, that you think I forgot to ask, or that you feel people
God,
need to
time has run out already, Anish.
We are getting to the end. It's been such an interesting conversation. I'm so fascinated by what you've been saying. If there's anything in your head that you think, this is relevant or sideways, or
I think for me, I would say if somebody is leading in care, one, they're leading, they're not managing. So if I really like CQC, you've got well led, not well managed. You know, there's a reason for that. Leaders need to show up more, show more of themselves, be more real, be vulnerable, be clear. So for me, I think well led it's really important. So if you're a leader, I would say you can support people really well and also challenge highly. So if I'm going to support your career, if I'm going to support you as a human being, I'm going to challenge you where you are not challenging you. I'm going to do that because you're worth it. I'm going to do that because you're important. I'm going to do that because I'm going to give you that time. So high challenge does not equate to problems when you give high support as well. And I suppose that for me is really important in leadership. Just be prepared for high challenge and be prepared to give that, not take it, give it, because it's a gift you can do with people, but it requires something of yourself. So I would say that be mine.
Thank you so much. I think that's an amazing place to stop, if that's all right with you, Anish.
Absolutely. No, that was wonderful.
That is a great thing for everyone listening to take away and mull over and consider. And that has been fascinating, Samantha. Thank you so much. You have clearly got an amazing team around you and lots of places that you can go to work on your ideas and develop them. If there's anyone listening who feels perhaps they don't have that structure in place, we are always encouraging providers to find a community, whether that's through a local organisation, an informal network of care homes nearby, or our DigiHive community. I think having someone else to talk things through, and perhaps someone else to say, can I describe a situation and can you tell me if I'm being nice or kind? Because it's hard sometimes, I think, to spot that in your own behaviour. We would love to hear from you. We hope that you found this episode useful, and we look forward to the conversations about it in our community, and that we'll see you again next month.